Hi, this is Hatim Kheir with the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, and this is the update for Day 15 of the Public Order Emergency Commission hearings. Today we heard from three witnesses. We heard from Keith Wilson, who was counsel to the corporation that represented some of the organizers of the protest. We heard from Tom Razzo, who was involved with the protesters, and from Pat King. Some of the highlights from today's evidence were starting with Keith Wilson. He described some of the advice that he had given to the protesters. So one of the lines of questioning that were put to him was about the Memorandum of Understanding, and he explained that he made it clear to the protesters that the memorandum was legal nonsense. He compared it to sovereign citizen movements and explained that he had described that government is replaced in one of two ways. Either the Prime Minister requests the Governor General to dissolve Parliament, or by tradition when a budget fails. And so other than that, the Memorandum of Understanding was, it's called a Memorandum of Understanding is an agreement, and in this case, obviously there was no agreement. It was a nothing, basically. He described how Dean French became involved as someone facilitating negotiations between protesters and police in the city. He explained that he was put in touch with Dean French by Brian Peckford, and it was French who suggested moving trucks out of residential areas and made that a condition of him working with them. Mr. Wilson also described the deal to move trucks onto Wellington, which we've heard about from other witnesses. He explained that the purpose of that move was to try and to put the focus on the federal government, and while making a show of good faith that the protesters were willing to talk. He explained that it was understood that not all the trucks would go onto Wellington, but in fact many would leave the city, which we also heard about from Mr. Barber yesterday. He explained that they were, some of the work that they were doing to implement the agreement until it was blocked by police, which is consistent with what we've heard from others. And he did explain that part of the approach of the Chris Barber, Tamara Leach group of protesters was that they would do what they can to move whatever trucks they could, either out of the city or onto Wellington, and then anyone who remained and was being uncooperative, that group would then withdraw their support. And lastly, with respect to Mr. Wilson, he explained that he reiterated to the protesters again and again that parking in the street is illegal. He used the metaphor of just parking a street on the middle of the highway. It would get ticketed and towed, and so he did explain that that was part of the advice that he gave. We then heard from Tom Razzo, who is a former member of the armed forces, who described how he became involved with the Freedom Convoy protest in Ottawa. He explained that he learned about James Bowder from a friend of a friend, didn't know much about him, but that Bowder had asked him to go to Ottawa. He did, and then end up connecting with the other protesters that were there and taking on a role in helping with negotiations and organization. One of the highlights from his evidence was that he explained that Diagolon was a joke. He went on at length explaining that it was a meme, and that the federal government and government officials were mistakenly taking it as something more serious. Though he described his interactions with Jeremy Mackenzie, though limited that they were. And then lastly, the commission heard from Pat King. During his evidence in chief, there was quite a bit where various videos and statements that he had made were put to him. He made a point of trying to explain himself. He was saying that the video that was put to him was a compilation of many different videos put together, and then he went through each one describing the context around the statements that he made. It also did come out in his evidence that he said that him and Tamara Leach and Chris Barber barely saw each other. He said that Ms. Leach and Mr. Barber were quite busy, though he did say that at one point they had asked him to get truckers to try and lay off the horns, and he said, "Yeah, I'll do what I can." So moving towards a bit of commentary. So this is, of course, my opinion, but much of the evidence we heard from today just corroborates what had previously been heard. We heard more about the deal to move trucks, which now we're hearing it from the side of the protesters, but in a lot of ways it coincides with what we were hearing from the police, in the sense that this deal had been negotiated. Trucks were going to move on to Wellington. Those that couldn't or didn't want to could leave the city, and then ultimately the deal was ended by the police. And we also now kind of have corroboration from the other side in terms of the relationship between the Pat King group of protesters and the Chris Barber and Tamara Leach group of protesters, and the fact that they were operating independently when they were in Ottawa. So that's the update for today. Tune in tomorrow when we'll have the next update.